This is an audio reading of A Visit from Auntie Thresa Claus, William Hovey Smith, 2023. This is derived from my original story, The J Family Christmas, copyrighted in 2009 by William Hovey Smith, all rights reserved. This was performed at the Sidetrack pub in Tennille, Georgia on November 9, 2023. Several years ago, there was a family named J who lived in Johnson City in the United States. James J was the father, June J the mother, Jimmy J the son, and Jennifer J the daughter. As Christmas approached, there was rising excitement that Santa would bring some special presents that would appear under the tree on Christmas morning. Times were hard and money was scarce. The factory where James had worked for 25 years had closed, and his wife, June, had a part-time job at a department store while the children were at play school. James was a skilled craftsman and did fix-up work around the town. 2 days before Christmas, James remarked to his wife, June, "It looks like there will be enough this year to buy gifts for the children and each other. In addition to the nice Christmas dinner that we planned, I know that Jimmy wants that air rifle that is in the window of Blackstone's hardware store more than anything else. Do you know what Jennifer wants?" James asked his wife. "Yes. Jennifer has her heart set on that fancy princess dress on the mannequin at the store. It is expensive. Knowing that we were short of money, she dared not wish for it. But I've already started paying on it," June replied. "What do you want?" James asked his wife. "It's cold, and I could really use a good scarf." "Okay, that is little enough, but are you sure that you want nothing else?" "No, I would rather the money go for the children's presents," June replied. "Do you need anything?" she asked. "A new watch. Mine is broken, and I need to be able to know how long it takes to do a job. Nothing fancy, just a good everyday timepiece," James replied. In the meantime, the usual preparations for the Christmas meal had begun. There would be a Christmas goose that was already in the freezer. It had been brought over by James's brother after a successful hunt. Even dressed, it was a nice bird that would provide ample goose and dressing for the family. There would also be rice, sweet potatoes, a favorite succotash made from corn and butter beans, potato salad, collard greens, rolls, and a salad featuring a pear half on lettuce. For dessert, family tradition dictated that this be an English plum pudding baked with an ancient 3-penny coin that had been in the family for generations. Jimmy asked, "Why do you put that in the pudding?" His mother answered as she stirred the thick batter in a wooden bowl. "On Christmas morning, the tuppence has magical powers. Whichever person has a coin in his slice of pudding may make one wish." "Only one?" Jennifer questioned. "Only one," Jimmy replied with all the great authority that his 5 years could muster. "Otherwise, it would not be special." "That's right," their mother replied. "Only one wish, and it is best if that Christmas wish is not for yourself, but for someone else. Just as the Christ child gave to the whole world, we should also give to others." "That's no fun," Jennifer quickly responded, with a small pout forming on her lips. "If I have only one wish, I'm going to wish it on myself." "A wish freely given is a double blessing, and blesses both the one that gives and the one that receives," her mother admonished. To give freely, without expectation of getting anything back, is the highest expression of the Christmas spirit. It rewards both the giver and the recipient, James explained. "I won't give anything unless I get something back," Jennifer asserted as she left the room. "She will know when she gets older," James said to Jimmy, as he watched his wife knead the thick dough into a bowl. "Giving is always better," he concluded. "Auntie Thresa Claus, go away. Come not this house on Christmas Day," Jennifer repeated as she turned herself around and around to the left on the porch in the front of the door. "Auntie Thresa Claus, go away. Come not this house on Christmas Day. Auntie Thresa—" "Stop! Stop!" her father shouted as he walked up the snow-covered walk toward the house. "That charm only works on Christmas morning at sunrise. If used at any other time, it attracts her rather than keeps her from coming. Do you know what happens if she comes?" "She takes the presents away?" Jennifer responded somewhat fearfully. "She has that power, and that is not all." "Come in the house and I will tell you about her," James responded to his child, who was now on the brink of tears. Once inside, with hats, overshoes, and jackets removed, and warming comfortably in front of the roaring stove, the father called his two children to him. "Sit down, and I will tell you about Auntie Thresa Claus. She is not to be trifled with, or tempted to come to anyone's Christmas." "Why?" Jennifer asked. "She takes all the presents away," Jimmy blurted out, eager to impress his sister with his profound knowledge. "Like most things in life, it is a bit more complicated than that," James explained. "You know that at this North Pole there is Santa Claus, his wife Mrs. Claus, and the elves who make the Christmas presents that Santa distributes to the world's children on Christmas Eve." "Tomorrow night," Jimmy affirmed. "Yes, tomorrow. Be quiet, Jimmy, and let me finish. Like all the Clauses, Santa's sister, Auntie Thresa Claus, has magical powers. She can see what is inside Christmas presents, even if they are wrapped. This way, she makes sure that the presents go to the right girls and boys, and that the elves have addressed them correctly. Unlike the jolly old elf Santa, who only wants to give, Auntie Thresa wants to get, too. Each Christmas she visits houses and she gives out the presents. If she finds one she likes, she keeps it for herself. If she is refused at the door, she has the power to take everyone's presents, even those for the little children. So, if she comes, she must be treated as an honored guest so that she will take only some presents and not all of them. She will also take the Christmas dinner and decorations. If the Christmas charm is used too soon, it attracts her rather than keeping her away. Like a medicine, it must be applied in the right way at the right time." Jennifer had thought that she might have done something wrong when her father shouted at her, and now she felt terrible about what she had done. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," she replied as her eyes started to mist over with what promised to be a good cry. "It's probably all right," as he took his daughter in his arms. "Auntie Thresa Claus only visits 6 houses every Christmas. With so many having better Christmases than we, she will find better pickings elsewhere." "A turn! A turn! A turn! A turn too soon. We'll be there before noon," Auntie Thresa Claus remarked in the North Pole workshop as she inspected the final batches of presents before they were dispatched. "The Jays can host me with their roast goose and dressing and pudding and presents, too. Especially presents, too," she muttered as she directed the near-frantic elves at their work. Of all the Clauses, she was the worst to work for. Nothing could please her. The ribbons were too bright or too dull or too little or too large, and the boxes were too big or too small, and nothing was ever done fast enough. She considered the hard-working elves lazy if they were not working at anything less than a super double-quick fast pace. She continued to urge them to work faster all the time, and it is little wonder that they made occasional mistakes that would raise her to a fury. It delighted her to think of ways to make them work even faster and harder. "Faster! Faster!" she would say as she walked through the workshops. "Christmas comes. Don't be a laster." Laster was a made-up word that had become one of her favorites. She used it to designate some poor elf who, through accident, misfortune, or happenstance, happened to be the last one to finish his work. No matter how hard they worked, someone would finish last and receive Auntie Thresa Claus's full fury and the designation of a lazy laster. She wore a cast-off red Santa cap and one of his old coats that was many sizes too large for her. This garment had been up and down several thousand chimneys too many. On her feet were the magic shoes that permitted her to rapidly move about the frozen kingdom at the North Pole and go from there to anywhere on Earth. She seldom left the North Pole except for her annual visits to some unfortunate families on Christmas Day. As the Christmas sun rose across the earth, she would spend 4 hours with 6 families across the time zones before the Christmas Day sun finally set in the far-off islands of Alaska and the Pacific Ocean. Of the 6 families, the Jays were number 5 on our list. The Honolulu Hockey family in warm and sunny Hawaii were the last. Her face was gaunt, with several missing teeth. Her bony fingers were twisted, but these were still nimble enough to snatch presents away from the children of the unfortunate families that she visited. The day before Christmas, the Jay's house was full of the smells of roasted goose, sweet potatoes, exotic spices, and baking breads. As much as possible, Christmas dinner was made the day before. The children enjoyed helping their mother in the kitchen. Jimmy was busy cracking and picking out pecans, while Jennifer was stuffing dates with pecan halves and rolling them in powdered sugar. 2 hours before, the goose had been salted and put in a big black pan for roasting, and it was now beginning to emit a delicious aroma. "I could eat a whole goose," Jimmy asserted, "but I like the dressing best." The onions and celery had already been cut up for the dressing. The egg bread and hoe cake had been crumbled into a large bowl for use the next day. "I won't cook the dressing until Christmas morning because I need the drippings from the goose to finish it off," June informed her son as he tried to sneak a duff date off his sister's plate. "That's for Christmas dinner. If we eat them now, we won't have any," Jennifer admonished her brother. "Why do we have to wait? Why can't we have these all the time?" Jimmy questioned. "Christmas memories are best kept as family traditions," the mother explained. "I cook the Christmas meal just as my mother did, and her mother before that. In the food we cook, it's almost as if making them we had our whole family back again. Each generation adds its own little touches to the meal. When you kids have families, you will invent your own things to add." "Why aren't we having turkey?" Jimmy responded to point out this obvious change from past Christmas meals. "We are having goose because your Uncle Jim, who you are named for, was fortunate enough to take some geese while he was hunting, and he gave us this fat goose." "I want to hunt too," Jimmy said. "You will," his mother responded. "Your dad and Jim will take you out when you're old enough. In the meantime, you have to learn to shoot and hunt safely, be quiet in the woods, and about the animals you're going to hunt." "That's why I want a BB gun," Jimmy said. "Will I get one this year?" "We'll see," his mother replied. "I don't see why you want to go out and get dirty, hunt, and shoot things," Jennifer stated. "I want to make good food like Mother and stay indoors where it's warm, not get all wet and cold." "That's all right, too," the mother replied as she measured 4 tablespoons of clear rum to mix with the sugar to make the rum butter sauce that would go over the pudding. "Girls can hunt, too. I sometimes went with your father before you were born." James laid out 2 $10 bills, 3 $1 bills, a $half, a dime, and 4 pennies on the counter at Blackstone's Hardware to pay the $23.64 for the Daisy Red Ryder air rifle. It came in a cardboard box with a clear cellophane window so that the blue steel and wooden stock were visible. "Merry Christmas," the young clerk shouted after he handed the wrapped present to his customer. James hurriedly left the store so that he could walk down the street to the department store to pick up the presents that his wife had been paying on and to select a scarf for his wife. The young lady behind the counter was working part-time during the Christmas season. "I'll take the warm-looking one over there," James said as he pointed to a scarf having a green and red plaid. He then went to the layaway desk to collect the rest of his presents. "With your wife's employee discount, that is $14.56 to clear out the layaway account and for this scarf," the older man behind the counter said as she looked up from his ledger. James counted out the money and the man got off his stool to go to a rear room. When he returned, he had a big box that contained Jennifer's presents, a small box that James knew was a watch that his wife had selected for him. "Merry Christmas," the elder gentleman said as he repositioned himself. As James left to go with a stack of 4 cheerfully wrapped presents, he responded with a cheerful, "Merry Christmas to you too." He felt good that although times were hard, the J family would indeed have a Merry Christmas. Through the window of his own house, he could see the lights of the Christmas tree had already been turned on. The holiday wreath bounded almost joyfully on the front door as he opened and closed it. He bustled in with his packages and was instantly tugged upon by 2 pair of eager hands. Wait, Jimmy, these go under the tree. They won't be opened until Christmas morning." Reluctantly, the children released their father and he carefully placed the 4 presents under the tree. There was 1 large box, 1 long, slim box, a smaller long box, and a tiny one. There were no names on any of the presents. "Mine! This one!" Jimmy said as he grabbed the long box and gave it an exploratory shake. This shake was followed by a satisfying slump, bump noise as something heavy rattled inside. "This one's mine!" Jennifer shouted, picking up the largest box and stroking the brightly printed wrappings. "Maybe so, and maybe not," James stated. "You will have to wait until tomorrow to find out." Christmas morning brought the quiet hush of a new blanket of snow, with snowflakes dancing on a cold wind from the North Pole, blinking under the street lights on the corner. Jimmy woke under a thick layer of blankets. He stuck one hand out and quickly pulled it back. He listened, and he could hear the satisfying sounds of his father pouring a fresh scupper of coal into the big pot-bellied stove in the middle of the living room. Soon the house would warm up and he could go downstairs. On a chair beside the bed was a heavy housecoat and the bedroom slippers that he had been given last year. His plan was to put these on quickly, run down the stairs, and stand by the stove. The damper clanked in the stovepipe, and now, even through the door, he could hear the satisfying roar emitted by the stove as a load of coal was catching fire. Bracing himself against the shock of warm feet hitting a cold wood floor, he threw himself out of bed, turned on the table lamp, and shivered as he felt the cold bathrobe through his flannel pajamas. Now, with his feet stuffed into the bedroom shoes, he prepared to run down the stairs to make sure that his presents were still under the tree. He thought he knew what it was. He was almost certain that his air rifle was in that box. The anticipation was nearly as delicious as finding out. Swinging open his room door, he almost slammed it behind him. But catching himself, he closed the door quietly and stood on the landing. Two conflicting needs arose and intensified now that he was exposed to the cold. The bathroom door between his and his sister's room was open, and he could take care of that and then go down to greet Christmas Day. Jennifer, awakened by the loud flushing noise of the commode, opened her eyes to see that our room was still dark. "It's Christmas come," she said. And she threw back her covers and instantly drew them back over her when the wedge of cold air replaced the cocoon of warmth that her body had generated. "It's cold," she said in an almost involuntary response. The door opened and Jimmy turned on the light. "Merry Christmas," he said. "Daddy started the stove and it will be warm downstairs. Where are your slippers and bathrobe? I'll get them for you. Hurry. Maybe we can open presents." Jimmy knew that no presents could be opened until the entire family was assembled. Jimmy closed the door and went to the stair landing, which was lit by the light coming up from the downstairs. Going down the treads step by step, he peered deeper and deeper into the rooms to make sure that everything was still there from the night before. The stove was now beginning to grow red at the top. The Christmas tree was still in the corner and its lights had been turned back on. The 4 boxes were still under the tree. He could hear his mother and dad in the kitchen and smell the aroma of coffee and frying sausage. Christmas Day would arrive very, very soon. "Santa didn't bring us anything," Jennifer observed as she looked carefully under the tree and saw only the 4 presents that had been there the night before. "Oh, yes, he did," her father said as he brought one and then the other of the children and squeezed them tightly to his chest. "He brought each of us together on this fine Christmas day." Even through the heavy robes, the children felt the warmth of their father's body and the accustomed smell of his scented shaving soap. As they turned to go to the breakfast table, there was a loud rap at the door. Unsaid in the back of June's mind was, something must be terribly, terribly wrong for anyone to come this early on Christmas morning. "James, see who that could be." James released his children and turned to go to the door. Before he could arrive, there was another fury of knocking that was even more insistent than before. Come in, James said to his early morning visitor as he unlocked and opened the door. "It is good that you welcome me, sir," said the strange-looking figure. From what could be seen at a glance, the red-cloaked figure surrounded by blowing snow looked like she had just come from the North Pole. Flowing from head to feet was a soot-stained red coat many times too large for the slim old lady, who raised a white, bony hand and pointed it at James. Snow fell from the white-trimmed cuffs on the sleeves and the trim of a hat, which was pulled down over her ears. "I am Thresa Claus. The last family did not welcome me so, and they did not like the result," she cackled. "I took all their Christmases away." "Children, Auntie Thresa Claus is here," James informed his startled children. "Set another plate at the table. She will be our honored guest this Christmas Day." While he said so, he cast a pained look at his wife. He had to keep up a pleasant appearance for the benefit of his newly arrived guests. "And these must be the children. Sweet little angels that they are," Thresa Claus remarked. "You probably don't have to spank them more than twice a day. Once a day if they needed a knot." And she took off her coat. She cast a chilling glance at Jimmy and Jennifer. "We love our children," James said in a quick reply. "And no, we don't have to spank them every day. Almost never. They're good kids." "I'm very, very sure they are," Thresa responded. "Very, very, very sure indeed," she added with a disparaging tone. Another plate was quickly set at the breakfast table for their new guest. From the family Bible, James withdrew a tattered sheet of paper. It contained some lines that were written with a quill pen in an antique flowing style once known as copperplate. The ink was still dark on the brown paper. "This is our family Christmas prayer," James said before he started to read. With this announcement, everyone took their seats. James was at the head of the table. Jimmy sat to his left, Jennifer to his right, then June, and Auntie Thresa Claus sat at the foot. A vacant place was set between Auntie Thresa Claus and Jennifer in honor of family members who had shared in the celebrations of previous Christmases but were now dead. James started to read. Heavenly Father, this day marks the birth of the child, Jesus, that you gave to save the world from sin. Let us celebrate this day in his honor. Bring peace and your blessings to those gathered here, to this family wherever they may be, and to the world. Amen. All, including Thresa Claus, joined in the Amen. The remainder passed in a rather strained silence, broken only by Auntie Thresa Claus's complaints that the plates were too cold, the grits were not salty enough, the sausage ill-seasoned, and the coffee was too weak. It's time to give out presents, Auntie Thresa Claus announced after she had finished eating. An involuntary, that is the bestest time, escaped from Jennifer's lips before she thought exactly who their Christmas guest was and what she could do. Maybe so, and maybe not, Thresa Claus remarked coldly as she replied while sitting on a blue cloth-covered stool under the Christmas tree. James stood by the stack of 4 presents under the tree. I would be pleased if you would take this one, James said as she lifted the smallest box off the pile that contained the watch that June had bought for him. I have no need of time, Thresa Claus replied sourly as she handed the box back to James. He opened it and saw it was a wristwatch with a leather band and a golden cover, hands, and numbers. Showing this to Thresa Claus, James asked with a hint of pleading slipping into his voice, Are you sure you don't want this one? No. There are others, she observed with an evil grin spreading across her face. Perhaps you would like this one, June said as she handed Thresa Claus the next box off the stack. No. I have no need of things to keep me from the cold. She pointed a frigid, bony finger at June, who jumped as if she had been stabbed with an icy knife. Next down the stack was a long, thin box. Jimmy closed his eyes and crossed his fingers behind his back, in hopes that Thresa Claus would not want so boyish a present. Tears swelled up behind his eyes when he heard Thresa Claus's cries of cackling pleasure as she visualized the contents of the box. A Red Ryder air rifle, she enthusiastically replied. This is just what I need to motivate those lazy elves. A pop in the butt will keep them moving. Don't you think I should have this? Do you give it? Answer me, boy. Fighting back tears, he mustered a nearly whispered, Yes, I give it freely. And then he ran to the bathroom to get a towel to dry his tears. Jennifer sat expectantly. Surely, she thought, Thresa Claus would have no use for a little girl's dress with its white lace and pink ruffles. Seeing through the wrappings, Thresa Claus' face lighted up with fiendish delight. Hey, that's just what I need to encourage my elves. I will make those lazy lasters wear it. They will be so embarrassed as to redouble their efforts. Do you give this to your dear Auntie Thresa Claus? She asked. A stammered yes escaped Jennifer's lips, and she fought back tears. I must go, Thresa Claus announced. I am soon to call on the Honolulu hockey family in Hawaii, but I would like a little Christmas pudding before I go. I've already eaten several Christmas dinners, and I'm getting a little full. A little pudding and rum sauce would be just the thing to finish up with. Eager to do anything to have their Christmas guests leave as quickly as possible, James and June removed the breakfast dishes from the table, put them beside the sink, and June put a small pot on the stove to warm the rum, butter, sugar sauce that would go on top. The small pudding was a molded dome with fluted sides and a star on top. The coating sauce had been heated to the point where it could be poured over the top of the cold pudding. It would harden into a crust and almost magically change the pudding's color from dark brown to snow white when the sugary glaze hardened. Small plates were set, and soon everyone was around the table. The custom was that the pudding would be cut into as many pieces as there were guests. Everyone could eat as much of the rich pudding as they liked. The rest of the slices were wrapped in tinfoil, labeled, and put in the bread box to be eaten before New Year's Day, when all of the Christmas decorations were to be put away. Taking care to cut exactly 5 equal slices, James placed them on small china plates. He was hoping that he would get the silver trumpets, but that was not to be. Wherever the small coin was, it was not exposed when he sliced the pudding. The first slice was given to their honored guest, and Thresa Claus started eating. The next slice went to his wife June, the next to Jimmy, the one following to Jennifer, and the last for himself. When the plates were distributed, James nodded his head that the children could start eating. Nothing was heard but the soft tings of forks against china plates. "I found it! I found it! I found it!" Jennifer excitedly exclaimed as she held up the small, shiny silver coin with a bust of a king on its face. The coin was old and worn. The funny-looking bust of the former king tickled her as she twittered with a soft laughter. "You have one wish. Think about it hard before you wish it," her father counseled with what he hoped sounded like an offhand remark. He knew very well that there was only one wish that could undo all that had transpired that Christmas morning. Jennifer grasped the coin tightly in her hands, closed her eyes, and her face distorted as she thought about possible wishes and their consequences. "Hurry up," Thresa Claus said. "I have to go. Wish quickly and wish well. Both good and bad can come from wishing." Jennifer closed her eyes and said, I wish that..." When Jennifer opened her eyes, she was once more on the stoop in front of the house door, and her father was walking down the snow-covered walk. She ran to him, threw her arms around his legs, and hugged him. Surprised, James uttered a startled, "What's all this?" "Everything's all right. I wished. Jennifer stammered with tears of joy running down her face. "Auntie Thresa Claus will not come. She will not come." Releasing her father's leg, she opened the door and they went inside to participate in the family's preparations for a joyous J family Christmas. "Come, children, and I will tell you all about Auntie Thresa Claus." Please consider buying my outdoor books, business books, and novels for Christmas presents this year to help sponsor this recording and my other works. Thank you very much, William Hovey Smith. Hunt what you eat and eat what you hunt. Goodbye and God bless.